welcome to the Royal Geek Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Rollison, also known as T-Roll, and tonight I am joined by my very, very good friends. First of all, we got Justin Sandoval, a.k.a. Sandy. We also have Anthony Amato. We like to call him Shamato. And, of course, we got my man Apple Zach's Zach Markham in the house. Boys, I'm excited to be here tonight. We are going to be discussing the first 3 episodes of The Rings of Power.
Yeah, man. This show is really starting to pick up steam, and it's my most anticipated show right now.
Ooh.
It's pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
Spoilers already.
Justin's loving it. Yeah, no spoilers yet. Yeah, man. I'm excited to talk about this with you guys. It has been a much anticipated show for a lot of people.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, the Lord of the Rings franchise is, it's up there with
the greatest trilogy of all time.
Yeah. Sure.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Markham?
Sure. Markham.
Our Star Wars.
I would third it to not. You know what? I would second it to Star Wars. I would second it to Star Wars.
What about the first 3 Toy Stories?
Ooh. Here we go.
Hold on, guys. What about the Hangover trilogy? It's just kidding.
Pound for pound, Lord of the Rings is the better trilogy.
Yeah, maybe so. And I think it's just another mega franchise, and we are in the era of expanded universes, and that's what this is.
Very much so.
So why don't we pause, and before we get into the spoiler version of covering episodes 1 through 3, just want to say thank you to all of our listeners and to all of our viewers, everybody who's checking this out on YouTube. Why do you guys keep giggling at each other over here?
This guy's a rookie right here. Didn't open his drink
before?
Yeah, before the podcast.
Golly, man, just embrace it.
I'm looking at him ready. This guy's...
Anyways,
cheers,
big thanks
cheers.
to all of our viewers, all of our listeners. We really appreciate you. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, or like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts as well. And just help us, leave comments, review, all those things help us out a lot. So, and we're all over social media as well.
All over.
At Royal Geek Pod.
Yep.
On just about all of your favorite social platforms. So, yeah. All right.
Here we go.
Here's your spoiler warning. And we're doing 1 through 3 because last week, we normally record on Fridays. Scheduling conflicts, we had to record on Thursday, which means we weren't able to watch episodes 1 and 2 last week. So that's why we're covering the first 3 now.
Right, yeah.
But... it's been freaking awesome.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that we have all 3 episodes right now, they dropped 2 last week, and I do like Amazon's style of for example, when The Boys came out, they dropped the first 3 episodes right away, and then they went single week, which it's good to get it in bulk. It really is.
Yeah.
The first 2 episodes. If we would have just got Rings of Power the first episode, it was a good episode. It kind of set up a lot of storylines, but it didn't really do much as far as I don't know, anything crazy.
Yeah.
But I will say the ability to watch the second episode, for sure, it was awesome. The second episode hit on so many different levels.
Yeah, I feel like Amazon's flexing a little bit because usually the second episode is never as good as the first episode, but with Amazon to drop them back to back like that, and both of them turn out gold. Gold.
Yeah, exactly. They complement each other very well.
Correct.
Yeah, I thought so. At least.
And we watched episode 1 together last week, which was fun.
Yeah, it was.
And,
it was a good time.
And I was hooked.
Yeah.
If it wasn't so late by the time we were done watching, I was like, man, I'd love to watch episode 2. Did you go home and watch it right away?
I went home and watched it right
away.
Yeah,
I said
did
you
too.
would, so I figured you would.
Exactly.
Well, and I think it's interesting that when they do that, the shows know that's how it's going to drop. So it kind of changes the way you build the first couple of episodes in a series, Yep. If you're going to have 2 or 3 episodes immediately drop, you can kind of change how you do it. You don't have to you don't necessarily have to hit people over the head with what you're trying to get across in that very first episode, and you can lead into something into the second episode. So you get twice as much, sometimes 3 times as much if they drop 3 episodes like they do with The Boys, to get you to a point to where you're hooked, So I think that really helps the way you can structure something to make it extra juicy when the time comes.
Yep.
Yeah, and okay, so the first 3 episodes as a whole, okay, episodes 1, 2, and 3. We're probably going to bounce back and forth between scenes from episode 1, 2, 3. I don't think we necessarily need to go chronological right here.
No, we don't. Which, real quick, listeners and viewers, that means if you haven't finished episode 3, you might want to before listening to this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that should
there
be
you go.
self-explanatory, but just in case. This is a spoiler for all 3 episodes. So
yeah, it might be better to actually split it up by storylines rather than actual episodes.
Yeah, which
truthfully.
that is what's so enjoyable about this. Is
Yes,
it
I agree.
is just bouncing all over the place, man.
Yeah.
I love that.
So you know what? It just popped in my head right now. But what do you say we have our conversation based on storyline? So we'll start with our bottom storyline and work our way up to our favorite storyline. What do you think about that, guys? I know I'm putting you on spot right now here on the pod.
Sure,
sure.
Well, then lead us. What? So does that mean you'll go
So
from your order?
I'll go from my order, and then if you guys along the way want to go ahead and say you're an idiot, I like that storyline better, then fine. But I'm gonna go ahead and start it off here with the Harfoots with Nori and the Stranger.
Okay.
I feel like that's my least interested. The only thing that's keeping me interested is the fact that who the heck is the Stranger?
Yeah.
I mean, speculation, and my gut is telling me that it's Gandalf, but I feel like he looks already too old to be Gandalf. I don't know, because this is still.
I mean, I think age is
It's irrelevant.
Is irrelevant for him as a character,
Right. Yeah, I agree. But I feel like that storyline, cool. We see Harfoots and a guy fall from the sky, which was epic to see, by the way. Like visually, him laying there in a circle crater covered in fire that didn't really burn,
like some Terminator vibes.
Yeah, very much so. Terminator vibes. Yes, good shout, man. I love that. But yes, the only thing that's keeping me hooked on their storyline is the Stranger, because of who he is, where did he come from, why is he here? And in the 3rd episode, Nori kind of says it the best. She's like, I am nothing. I am nobody. But I believe he is special. And I think that's what's keeping me on that storyline. So that's why I'm putting it down as the lower of the tiers, I should say. I'm not saying it's the worst. I'm just saying that as
least
far
intriguing,
as
potentially.
Intriguing.
So you didn't do this based off of height, right? You did it.
No. Well, I mean, the Stranger is a giant, right? That's what she says. Because,
it brings the average up.
Yes, exactly. So, but I mean, your thoughts on anything to do with the Harfoots right now?
I mean, I would say the Harfoots are probably probably the least interesting in my mind of the characters that we have seen so far. The actual Harfoots, not the Stranger. But I feel like them as a species has been the least interesting to me. Now, of course, the Stranger is a very interesting idea, especially if it is Gandalf. It would explain a lot about his affinity for hobbits in the first place and believing what a hobbit can actually be. It would explain a lot about how somebody who is so powerful in his own right would think this way about a hobbit, and how he would, have had a connection with the Shire, in that right. But it would also be interesting in the sense that you're seeing Gandalf, who is generally someone who kind of always has he kind of always has a plan, in action of some sort, and it'll be interesting to see him from point of view of not having a plan,
I think the Harfoots in general, I was more interested in them when we got to episode 3.
Yes, yeah.
Now, I will say, I think, actually, one of my most favorite characters in the whole show so far is actually, I think his name is Sadok.
Sadok.
So the black guy, the black Harfoot, who's apparently the chief.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He's pretty cool. And also, I was actually pretty... I really like that scene when they were giving a toast to everyone who had been left behind or lost.
Yes.
Yes.
I thought that was incredibly touching.
Yeah, that's a very
left behinds. Left behinds.
And then when they said "We wait for you" and they toasted, I was like, wow, that's a really cool tradition. And then it's it's so interesting because they are so community oriented, but their main it's so interesting that
survival is
survival
their main thing.
Yes.
They will not wait for you.
Which when I think it was the
They
second
will not help you with your carriage.
the second group that he mentioned in that whole memorial thing, like the way Poppy was reacting, like the tears to her eyes, like it made me believe like that was her family.
That's her
like
family,
all of them
for
was
sure.
was her family.
Well, she was alone with her own carriage.
Yes,
Yeah.
she was pulling her own carriage. Yeah, so like that was
Cart,
intense.
whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's kind of like the basic idea of like we don't think about this for most humanoid creatures, but they are the prey of this world. Like
Yes,
they are
yes.
like when it's almost like when you watch like Animal Planet or National Geographic, when you're watching that and you're seeing like a herd of like zebras or something like that. That's what the Harfoots are. They're the ones being attacked. So there is no matter how much that zebra pack cares about each other, they literally cannot stay to save anyone who isn't. And that's how I saw it, was like kind of that relation to where in this world, Harfoots are prey.
Which, how cool was the opening scene with the Harfoots where the travelers are walking through and they're like,
yes.
I heard something, I saw something. It was just a badger or something like that, and then they walk away, and then their whole like town village
comes out of
pops
nowhere.
It was like it
Yeah.
reminded me of like a speakeasy scene.
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
turnaround.
Yeah,
it was pretty cool to see, man. I really enjoyed that introduction to the characters.
Yeah, I mean, through the whole franchise, like the Harfoots, Hobbits, like they've always been like the species I've been able to like relate the most to.
Yeah.
Because like they're basically like your average person, in day-to-day life. They're not trying to like seek out some adventure, or none of them are knights, none of them are noble. They're just average people, wanting to live a comfy lifestyle, armchair, good food, community, all that stuff oriented. And the truth is like not everybody can be a Legolas or a high elf. Some people are just hobbits, man. Some people are just hobbits.
Harfoots, maybe.
Harfoots,
Yeah.
But I did love seeing them like in these first 3 episodes. I do love the fact that you can't relate to them as like cowards, because they're not cowards in a sense. Even though they're avoiding like any sort of like danger or anything like that, they're doing it for the best of the community.
Yeah.
And the fact that they stay like so concealed, like moving out, migrating, all that kind of stuff, for their survival is just, I don't know, it's really interesting.
Yeah. Once again, like I said, it's like when you see a pack of prey animals in a National Geographic. It's very much like that. Like, you don't think of the zebra pack as being cowards when one ends up being picked off. You think about they're thinking about the good of the entire group rather than the one that is getting left behind, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah. Oh man. But yeah. So Harfoots for me is the fourth storyline that I think.
Yeah.
Is,
Oh, so we got 4 here.
There's 4.
We got 4. What's number 3 then?
Number 3 for me. This is for me is Elrond and Durin, the dwarves. So first off, we get Elrond in episode 1, and he's interacting with like Galadriel, and but then like he kind of veers off because she goes her own way, which we'll get to that storyline. All right, we're not there yet. And so he ventures off to the dwarf kingdom, and I thought it was cool with him and what is his name again?
Doran.
Celebriel. Shoot, man. The guy,
so many names.
I know, so many names,
There's
and
a lot of
we're
names.
going to butcher them. But the smith, the one who makes beautiful things. Like anyway, I think it's you know what? Forget it. I can't scroll fast enough to find it, so we're good to go. So anyway, my bad. Oh, here we go. Celebrimbor. What? Oh, sheesh. I butchered that.
Yeah,
Anyway.
Charles Edwards' character.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Oh, jeez.
Celebrimbor.
Yes, Celebrimbor.
You gotta say it with
something like
confidence.
that. I don't know. I can't. Anyway, so
Celebrimbor.
Celebrimbor. Thank you, Shamato, for
We were
being
nowhere near that.
nowhere near it. Celebrimbor. Anyway, so the fact that he goes up there to the dwarf door and he's like, "Oh yeah, he'll welcome me with open arms, and he's a friend of mine, and ram's horn blaring, salted pork ready for me," and then they're like, "No, go away," and then they close the door. Like it's just like that. Like that's what it is. And then he goes, he's like, "Oh, I invoke the right of," and then he says whatever a dwarvish word, and then they bring him in. He tells Celebrimbor that he's going to be back. I'll meet you in a couple days. Like, just go. I got this. You've mastered your craft. Let me I'll show you mine. Right. And then the whole establishing shot of him walking in and you seeing this dwarf kingdom like revealed, and like it looks amazing. It's like stunning. Yeah, absolutely, it's stunning. And then like the introducing of Durin and him as a character, like I want to know more. I want to see more of him, and the fact that we didn't get him in episode 3 was a little disheartening. Because
that's true.
Because I really wanted to see more of Doran.
The problem is because it's so crowded. There's so many storylines.
There's so many I mean, there's so many storylines. I've narrowed it down to 4 big ones, and I think more Doran and Elrond is going to be needed going forward. But just his charisma, it really like stole episode 2 for me. And I really like, especially he's like, he wants nothing to do with him. It's been 20 years since he last saw him. And then especially the line he says while they're going up that little like elevator thing, where he's like, 20 years to you is like is nothing in for an elf, but like for me it's a lifetime.
Yes.
And he's like, I was married, I've had kids, and you were nowhere to be found. Like I don't know, I kind of feel that. I mean, there's definitely like friendships that I wish I can go back to and that kind of stuff. But and so I can relate to how Durin was feeling, and the fact that he was able to Elrond knew what he was doing in getting to the wife, and then like inviting you could tell he was so calculated because he's such a politician.
Yes.
On getting in there, and once he made it to the wife, you knew it was over for Durin, and
for sure.
Yeah, he couldn't stick to his guns of banishing him from all dwarvish kingdoms.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see where that storyline goes, and what they do with building the tower for Celebrimbor, and it's just gonna be interesting to see, especially knowing what I know, the brief lore that I know of Lord of the Rings and what Celebrimbor does for Sauron. Like it's gonna be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, there's some really cool stuff that was there. One of my favorite parts was it mirrored, of course, the relationship that Legolas has with Gimli in a lot of ways. That it's like it's a competitive kind of like combative relationship, but you know, there's not a whole lot of like general outward like positive feeling toward each other, but there's most of it's like subtext that you're seeing, and it played out a lot like that with the way they were talking and stuff like that between their relationships. So that was really cool to see that relationship kind of almost rebuilt in another form that we're seeing there. And it was also just it was a little bit sad, like thinking about what happens later on to this place that they're at, because that's you see it just demolished and just completely taken over by goblins at one point. So and it's just you it's kind of sad because you're like, and even Gimli brings up like the halls of Durin and stuff like that. So like it's sad in some ways seeing it at its height as well.
Yeah, but it also kind of puts in perspective of
how awesome it really was.
How great it was at its peak, but then like how tragic it was. It has to have been for the fall to happen. Like we haven't seen the fall yet, but like the fact that it's coming, and there's going to be that period of like terror, destruction, and all that kind of stuff happening in this world, and to take it to where it ends up, where we see it in the movies, is it's got to be pretty tragic for sure.
I think it's more sad to know that it has to happen.
Yes,
and you see everything that's going on, like it hasn't even hit them yet. Mm-hmm. They're right at the calm of the storm, so to speak. So knowing that this stuff is going to happen, there's going to be like countless lives lost, towns completely obliterated, races even like completely obliterated and stuff like that. It's depressing, man.
Which we get our first little taste of towns being destroyed. And in the second storyline that I feel like is gripping to me it's Arondir, the elf who is watching over the town. Gorgeous human being, by the way.
Dude, that is one beautiful man.
Yes, he is.
Not gonna lie.
And so they definitely casted somebody very well for that elf.
He also seems like a true badass too.
Yeah,
real warrior.
Man, yeah. And so the fact that they're obviously at a station post, and then they're recalled because they're declaring that the war's over. They couldn't find any more enemy troops. And so like the rest of his company retreats, but like he stays behind because obviously he is
smitten.
He's
bruh.
smitten. Yeah,
He's smitten.
He is completely infatuated with a human female, which is unheard of. But I mean, the looks that the elves get, man, like it is just insane that how much they are looked down upon.
Well, they're an occupation force, you know,
right?
Like that's what they are. They are there to
basically
oppress these people in a lot of ways because they are the elves see these humans as scum because they sided with
the villain Mordoth.
So they sided with him, and the humans kind of see it as this happened, and it's kind of one of those things of the way you the lifespans can affect the way you see something.
Yeah.
You know, like because elves live so long, it's harder for them to not see these people as the ancestors.
Right.
Well, see them as the ancestors of these people, whereas these people might be 6-7 generations removed from, you know, what happened the people who actually pledged to the villain, you know. So like, I mean, if you had your great grandmother and somebody was calling you out on what she did, you know, you'd be a little bit annoyed too if they were still on top of your people and kind of in some ways probably, you know, oppressing your people. You feel like it in some ways, you know?
Yeah.
It's just the animosity between races in in this world. It's remarkable.
Yeah.
Between
it
people groups,
it really is.
Yeah.
There's multiple people groups. Like,
absolutely.
Yeah. But I just feel like that storyline. I mean, it's clear. I mean, spoilers here. Like, I feel like it's clear to me that like her son is Arendir's son, right? Like, am I wrong?
Yeah, I was getting those vibes too.
Yeah, like Arendir and her, they got together, and that kid who hates elves is like doesn't realize that that's his dad. Like, am I wrong?
I mean,
you guys getting that vibe?
I didn't
feel
think
like
that
there
at
was
all.
some sort of that is what it looked like, but I feel like there was some sort of a drop about who his father might be in there.
Also the interaction that Arendir had with what's that woman's name? It's
Bronwyn.
Bronwyn, yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, if they were lovers in the past, then they acted like...
But I think they had to. I think they had to act that way because it's so frowned upon.
They were literally in private in that town that was destroyed when she left him. They could have kissed and said goodbye. Like, I just feel like that's...
I feel like something happened between them where they feel like they can't embrace it. Because
I don't know,
think about it. You just mentioned the animosity that the elves they face.
Totally.
Right? And so what if whatever occurred between them has to do with that, and so she doesn't feel like maybe she put him in a situation where she feels guilty, where she's not willing to embrace that.
Yeah.
But
I will say it did feel like it was something that was almost like it was an unspoken thing between the two of them.
That's what it was.
In the sense of like they had yet to
go
over that bridge.
Yes.
You know, like they had yet to, like they were both like one was on one side of the river, one was on the other side.
He hasn't made it clear yet in my mind.
I don't think either one have like really made that like, hey, I want you.
Yeah.
And like that type of situation.
I agree.
And I do feel like there was, it was 3 episodes, so I'm not sure, but I feel like there was some sort of mention about either who his father was or something along those lines. But of course it could have been a straight up lie. Whatever it could have been, could have been.
But I really do think it is him.
All right. Well,
that would be the most. That's what I thought when I first saw it, and it would definitely be the most poetic way to do it. To be like, "Ha, you hate elves. Well, guess what? You are half blood." I feel like his hair is. We haven't yet to see his ears, which I feel like his hair is covering his ears. The points. Yes.
So
maybe his complexion too.
Yes. Yeah.
A little bit of that. All right, I will say this storyline with Arendir, not necessarily his love interest, but I think this is like the peak of this show.
Yeah.
Like, because that's where we are seeing the enemy.
So this is your number one, is what you're saying? For
sure.
Okay.
I can't get enough of this storyline because it's
my number 2, but we'll get to
this is where we are seeing literally the orcs and like how like the ingenuity to just like go underground and to like.
Are those goblins? Were those goblins?
I feel like they're orcs.
Because I thought the difference between a goblin and an orc was a goblin can't go out into light, whereas an orc can.
They
look ugly and scary. So I figured they were orcs, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I think that's part. I think that is part of it, but I could be wrong. But I feel like part of the reason is like goblins mixed with humans to make orcs. I think is what it is. But I could be wrong about that.
We're just your average super fan, so we couldn't tell you.
They've been talking about orcs though, like what's her name?
Galadriel.
Galadriel's been like hunting down orcs specifically,
correct.
right?
That's why I'm led to believe that they're orcs. But
either way,
and to be honest with you, like remembering back, I do feel like they call them orcs. Like to be honest with you, but
but like I said, the biggest problem I have with them being the people that were taking them over being orcs is their sensitivity to light. And everything that we have seen in the rest of the Lord of the Rings has been orcs have not been sensitive to light at all. And because they have like evolved past the goblins, but whereas goblins had to say
this could be early stage orc, where
just like Harfoots and hobbits, right? Like this is like the evolution.
Like maybe they're not as sensitive. Like maybe it's like a beginning of
we could be wrong. It could be goblins. Whatever. Fact check us, comment us, like dislike whatever you want to do.
The truth is, it's awesome. Everything that's happening here
is awesome.
Like the fact that they've got that many elf slaves too.
Right.
Like,
but before we even get to when they are captive. How about the scene where like they discover the town that's abandoned and the people are missing and they're literally like it's just Bronwyn and Arondir. They're just looking on this like destroyed city and they discover this tunnel. Like the whole scene where Arondir is in the tunnel. Like honestly, it feels like terrifying. Like it really does.
Very terrifying.
Like close quartered, especially when he's crawling through that little small space.
Rats are going over,
and rats are crawling over. Yeah, exactly. Like I'm like partially claustrophobic, so like that whole scene, I was just like I felt it in my bones. Like I don't know. There's just something about that a scene that just didn't sit right with me, and then I thought they executed it very well. And then the hands from behind that take him. Like that was just man, I loved it. Visually, this show has not missed a beat.
Yeah.
Like this show is, you can tell that the money was spent. Like this is a huge budget show,
dude.
And it is executed on every single aspect of visuals.
Yep.
So, but yeah, so he's in there, the cave, the tunnels, and then we see him next in episode 3, like captured, and then they're all slaves. They're working away. It's revealed that they are digging underway passages to hide the enemy, right?
Yeah.
To hide the orcs / goblins. That's what we'll do. We'll refer to them.
Yeah. That's good. That's good.
But yeah, like I thought it was pretty cool to just see that whole the enemy in that light. Like
same.
Yeah,
Same.
You mean Shadow?
The shadow. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, because like if. Again, I think of them as orcs, so let's just assume they are. I wouldn't think of orcs as like the brightest, like let's enslave these people for them to do our work. I just feel like they would just kill everybody, So like the fact that they've literally enslaved this town, and who knows how many other towns worth of people. Like I feel like there's a ton of people. You don't really get a sense for exactly how many people they have, and then like a handful of them are workers.
Right. Yeah.
So
I think not funny thing, but I think the really cool thing that I enjoyed of episode 3 is when Arondir is introduced. Like he's waking up and he sees like, okay, I'm captured. He's enslaved, and then when he's introduced to the rest of the group of people, and it's his post. It's all the people from his post, and he's like, oh crap, man! Like something bad happened. Like here we are. Like he ran away from them, and they were probably looking for him. And then imagine how he was feeling with that. I don't know, man. I just thought that was cool to see. And then they immediately like start talking about a way of how to get out of here.
And I thought somebody was getting out, man.
How
did you guys think?
Yeah, no, I did too. I thought at least one of them was going to get out. And they were going to meet up with somebody who was going to meet up with Galadriel, and then they would be taken down. But now I see that.
There's no hope.
There is no hope until the Lord of the Ring movies that there are going to be anything from that area.
But yeah, it would have been a really cool way to do it. Would have been Galadriel's kind of under house arrest, and whoever is a second elf shows up, and they also end up, and it throws off that entire the town is like, okay, we haven't seen elves in how long? And now there are not one, but two of them. And somehow in their conversation, there's this enemy. I mean, like, and then brings it up and like, you know, and then she, like this look in her eyes is like the fire is, you know, back to like 10 for her as she's like,
dude, she
stays
stays on 10 by the way.
Yes, I mean, she does, but like that extra, like maybe she turned it to 11. How about that?
There you go.
Like,
There you go.
you know,
Yeah, I'll accept that. Yeah, that's fine. That's good.
So, I gotta say, like, are we still on storyline 2?
Yeah, please keep going. Yeah, it's a good storyline. Trust me, it's fantastic. It's a great storyline.
First of all, the battle they had when you thought they were going to get out,
epic,
was incredible.
It was
Epic.
intense. Yeah, it was intense.
So intense.
Gosh, man,
Dude, he killed that one dude with a twig.
It was great. It was great, man.
Yes.
And especially when they released the dog looking thing, like what was it?
Warg.
Yes. Oh my god!
Yeah,
and then
that
he
thing's
had
scary.
it tied around the tree, and like he's like fending it off so that homeboy can get out, and and then he like climbs up the hill and sees, and he's like, see how far he goes, and he turns around, he's got arrows through his heart. It's like
Yes.
I was like, man, that was pretty rough to watch there. And then they pull him down. And they're getting ready to kill him.
And
like
let's
they
talk
were
about
literally,
this. Let's
they
talk
were
about
literally
this.
getting ready to kill him, and then he stopped and says, "Bring him to
Adar?
Adar."
Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. No, you're right.
All right, and we don't get a clear image, but
Now-
you can tell.
It's not an orc.
I could tell by the silhouette. Hey, whether it's goblins or orcs, man, it wasn't either
Yeah.
one of them.
It
That's
was-
an elf, bro.
It's an elf. Yeah,
That's
it's
an elf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our average superfan selves can tell
Yep.
that it's an elf.
Yep.
But next week, tune in next week.
Dude, I can't wait.
to find out more. But that's exactly what they did to us. That was the hook. That was the final scene of episode 3, and it's gonna be interesting to see what the direction goes for Arendir's storyline, because I mean, if it is an elf, and I mean, there's already been a trailer for the next week's episode, and he is speaking elf to whoever the captor is. So
Okay.
we'll see. We'll see who.
I hate trailers
I know,
within a season.
I know, man.
Stay away from it, man.
Yeah.
But Adar, they were kind of hyping it up like Adar was just another name for Sauron, but it's obviously like a follower of Sauron.
Interesting, man.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
a rogue elf.
Well, and like they did bring earlier in the episode, they did bring up the whole fact of like some of the stuff was in Elvish and stuff like that. So that was like kind of a point at the fact that just because the elves are fighting them doesn't mean all the elves are necessarily fighting against Sauron.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
for sure. Well,
Yeah.
Justin?
So then that leads to my personal number one storyline that we're following, and that's Galadriel and Halbrand, which for me, personally, Galadriel is by far like probably the strongest female character that we have in television right now. Like, she's fantastic. I don't think that she can do no wrong right now. I mean, like, she's doing a fantastic job. I'm looking forward to everything that she's doing. Like, if you think about it, she's like hell bent on revenge right now, and she is sticking to her guns. Like, it's do or die for her.
And she has not wavered from that. She
has not wavered. She has not been distracted by a male, even though one's been introduced.
Yeah,
it means nothing, and they're not falling into the tropes of
there's no love yet.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
But
even the idea of the Undying Land is like not a big enough pull for her. You know?
Yeah, like she literally was,
which is like their heaven, right?
Faced with like
basically
their version of Valhalla. Like, she was she was faced with that, and she chose to jump into the middle of the ocean where there was literally, like, when that happened, and we were all watching the first episode together.
Right,
we're
enjoy
like,
the swim.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's no way she gets anywhere near land, because who knows how long they've been sailing for.
Yeah.
And then just like the fact that she was picked up by a salvaged scrap heap of a floating vessel. Shipwreck. Yeah. And Halbrand, what a character so far. Like, I mean, he's got us asking so many questions about what he's doing, his intentions, who he is, where he comes from. Like, there's so many questions about this character, and yet, like, I feel like he still has this charisma that leads us to like be drawn to him, and like, I don't know, man. I just a lot was revealed in episode 3 about who he potentially could be, We know that he's king. He's a king from some portion of the Southlands.
Yep.
But as far as like Galadriel, like episode 1, like her and that snow troll, like the fight scene between her and the snow troll was absolutely fantastic. And
she crushed him, bro.
It helped establish her as kind of like a BA, dude. Like she was intense. I'm excited to see where her character goes. Like for me, like that's my storyline that I want to follow, and I'm 100% fine. Me personally, I'm 100% fine if she is 70% of the storyline.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at.
I mean, I'd be close with the percentage of that. I mean, I would say, generally, I would say I would agree with like your progression that you went through with like how you felt about the storylines. I felt like the Harefoots were towards the bottom. I mean, I think it'll depend on how much like how cool we actually see stuff with the actual Gandalf, if it is Gandalf.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And how that plays out. But I do believe that's down at the bottom right now. And then there's a couple like in a bunch of other interesting stuff happen. But I think she is definitely like a driving force, and I feel like she kind of has to be on screen a lot to kind of continue that. Like she's very like she's balls to the wall with like everything she is doing, like
so intense.
Like just pushing and pushing and pushing. And I don't think it works for her as a character if she isn't on screen a lot. Because it kind of takes away from her. It takes away from her drive a little bit if you're only seeing, 10, 20 minutes, 10, 15 minutes of her in an episode, because you're kind of losing her like drive, that push that she is doing. Because if they're only giving her this much, then that it kind of takes away from like how you feel a little bit about how much she is pushing a little bit, storytelling wise.
Yeah, and I think her story, like, it's being told very well, because like in the movies and everything, like her story is such a mystery, and she's not like portrayed as being like this BA character or anything, but like here we're getting like another side of it where like she's on the front lines, like she's doing this, and she's doing this for these reasons, which I feel like mean a lot to the plot of the story and going forward with this series.
Yeah, it's kind of like she earned her spot to where she ended up in Lord of the Rings. Right?
Correct.
Like, I see that. Which, like we mentioned, her intensity and how like she's at 11, right, at every single time. But so like how freeing was it when she was riding the horse? Like the slow-mo shot,
smiling,
like visually it was stunning. Like it was absolutely stunning.
Yes.
And you saw the slow-mo of the horse's feet hitting the sand. You see like with the dress she's wearing is like waving in the wind.
And just the look on her face.
The look on her face.
Like, when she like ride, and it was just like this. Look in her face just like came alive.
Like the kid inside her.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that was, for me, that was a good payoff for the character because she has been so intense this entire time.
Yeah.
And the fact that we get her in this third episode being able to like feel that freedom, that release, especially like, I mean, honestly, if you think about it, she's carrying the burden of her brother. Like he was such a huge factor in her decision to pursue the enemy.
Yeah.
She is like holding on to every bit of her brother's memory.
Yeah.
And she literally lives for that. Like that, she's trying to reach a conclusion to revenge. Like that's what she's trying to do.
Well, yeah, I think especially because of the fact that because elves are essentially are immortal, it makes it to this point to where when an elf dies, it makes it so much more like poignant because of the fact that means they for a man in this universe, like you lose 60 years. But in an elf, it's an eternity of time that you are losing if you are killed in combat. It means so much more to give your life if you are an elf in a lot of ways because you have so much. You're technically giving up so much more time. And I think also with her brother, like from the very first episode, you could already tell she had a fire in her. But I think also it was her brother was the person who could curb that fire, like that could direct it, that could help her keep it focused, whereas now that she has lost him, it not only is it the fact that he had this mission that he was on, but she is kind of like she is, you know, just instead of it being directed at something, it's like it's this complete and utter like inferno in all directions in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I really feel like her interactions with the characters that she's dealing with has huge ramifications for the Lord of the Rings lore of Sauron.
Oh, yeah.
What we know in the movie universe, right? Like she in this third episode, episodes 1 and 2, she interacts with Elrond, which we all know, like Hugo Weaving's character in Lord of the Rings series. But like in episode 3 here, she interacts with Elendil, right? The captain, and he has a son, which not to name drop or anything, but his son Isildur is he's literally the one that frees the ring from Sauron. Like,
yes,
it's that's the lineage that we're dealing with here. And
yes. How many times there was dropped during the Lord of the Rings Isildur's heir when they're referring to Aragorn.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. It's wild. It's wild, and the fact that Galadriel is here now being introduced to this character, and where. I mean, the point where she's at now, and then the point in Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Rings, like the events that have to occur in between there, like the Great War against Sauron, and the uniting of the man and elf armies, right? Like as of right now, like elves and man like do not mix at all. But from the events that are to come that lead to the Great War. It's going to happen because of her relationships with Elendil and Isildur. So it's very interesting to see her relationships start to form with them. And it's just so like even while she's at the Hall of Lore with Elendil and. They're looking at a picture, and Elrond's on the picture with his brother on there, and he's like, "Oh," she says, "I was always partial to like Elrond." Like the fact that that's all being like the everything's starting to intertwine, everything's starting to connect because like obviously Elrond's storyline is going to have some sort of ramifications to what she's doing. The stranger is obviously going to play a factor into what's going on. So all of these stories. Where they're at currently, it's hard to see where they're going to connect, but you know they're all going to connect. Like that's just Lord of the Rings style. Like it's everyone's storyline has a purpose, and we are going to be along for the ride. And I'm really excited to see the series. And it for me right now, as somebody who's watching She-Hulk, House of Dragon, and just several other shows, Rick and Morty. Yes, this is my most anticipated show every week.
Yeah,
like this, I am so into this show right now. I am excited.
I can feel it in your voice.
I cannot wait to see the next week's episode.
Yeah, and I'm loving like the parallels that they're drawing. Like I said earlier, between like the relationship between like Durin and Elrond that you're seeing, but you're also very similar. Like it may not end up being anything romantic, but like the strong relationship between a king of man and Isildur, potentially, in that line, and Galadriel is very similar to Aragorn's relationship, you know, with the elves. You know, although even at that point, men and elves didn't really get along, and you know, the relationship at this point between men and elves is very strained as well. So you're kind of seeing these parallels build in how they're going to have to work together to be up against this extreme evil.
Gosh, man. I mean, it still boils down to good and evil. It really does. But all I can say is we're all looking forward to the next episode. Yeah. I really feel like the Royal Geek Podcast is going to have this on lockdown for the next couple weeks.
Going to have to.
Yeah. It's on our radar.
Yeah. And also, we've mentioned it. There's one small thing to add.
Yeah,
we mentioned it a few times, but I'm just blown away by the visuals.
Yes.
The scenery. And that's a classic like Lord of the Rings thing, you know.
Yeah.
But just like showing all the kingdoms and the mountains and the open fields and the freaking trees, like everything is beautiful to look at.
It is.
Literally.
It really shows the budget is not going to waste. Like it's a massive budget, and you
Yes.
can tell based on the cast that
Yep.
the money wasn't spent on the cast. The money was spent on the visuals and selling the story and the connectivity to the Lord of the Rings, the movies. Like, they still hold up visually to this day, and I'm just excited to see the storytelling, because you can tell that the visuals and the storytelling is where they've invested, and the actors are committed, and they may be no names to us. Like, I mean, literally, like, they're a top billed person. Like, I mean, Morpheed Clark is playing Galadriel. Like, I've never heard of her in the history of my life, and she has stolen the show for me personally. But and then especially like Aaron Deere, like that actor, like I have no idea what he's been in.
What a guy.
What a guy. Yeah, I can't take my eyes off the screen. So anyway, they spent the money on the visuals is what I'm trying to get at, not the cast. So I'm looking forward to next week. I'll be there ready to watch early morning, midnight, or whatever. I'm there.
Justin's there, and we hope that you guys will be there with us as well. Again, before we get out of here, big shout out to everyone who's watching. Shout out to everyone who's listening. Please subscribe wherever you are listening or watching. We really appreciate that. And follow us on social media. Help us to get the word out about our pod. We are trying to grow the fan base. Humble beginnings here, okay? Very, very humble beginnings. But we appreciate you guys tuning in each and every week. Again, we will be back next week to cover Rings of Power. We're going to be covering She-Hulk still. We got a lot to cover. And D23 next week too. Yeah. There's so much to talk about. So please come back next week and hit that subscribe button so that you will be notified when videos drop. Let's see. With all that in mind, for my good friends, Sandy, Shamato, and Apple Zax, this is T-Roll saying thank you so much for listening to the Royal Geek Podcast. We will see you next time, you peasants.